In this episode, what is a firewall? By Alan Barker. For the purposes of this video, let me digress a bit here and describe the concept of a firewall. A firewall, in the historical sense, is a wall built between connected buildings and specifically constructed so that a fire in one unit of the structure will not spread to the other units. In a more recent sense, a firewall is a device on a computer network that keeps nodes of the network separated, for instance so that a hacker attack on one node of the network cannot spread to connected nodes of the network. For our purposes, we can consider all the computers on a network to be like houses on a street. Each house has several doors into it, which correspond to what are called ports on a networked computer. A computer actually has thousands of ports, but the principle is illustrated by considering a house with several doors. All the houses have inhabitants in them, who send out messengers to the other houses. This would correspond to a file transfer over a network. If the inhabitants of the house accidentally leave a door open, though, a messenger may be able to come in the house without permission and do whatever they like, again without permission. A firewall, in this analogy, would correspond to a complete facade built around a house or group of houses, to be picky. The actual house is not even visible from the street. The doors of the original house are only visible to messengers if the inhabitants of the house build corresponding doors in the facade. To enter the house in this scenario, a messenger would have to first knock at some visible door of the facade, be allowed in, and then knock at and be allowed into the actual door of the house. In this way the security of the house is greatly increased from unwanted intrusions. The title of this essay, Mental Firewalls, comes from an article by Timothy L. Thomas which appeared in the Army War College journal Parameters in spring 1998. It was titled The Mind Has No Firewalls. The Army has an often honorable tradition going back to the Revolutionary War, the Minutemen, and so forth. But it also has had and still has some treason in its ranks. This is just the ground truth, the facts on the ground. An army that tortures the domestic population is an occupation army. Treasonous Nazi pigs, in this real sense rather than some spin machine crap or some pathological lies bullshit, must be dealt with accordingly. This holds for all branches of the military. This holds for law enforcement as well. It holds for all intelligence agencies also. It holds even when they pretend the torture devices do not exist. Even if the victim does not realize what is happening to him or her, it is still torture. Informed consent must be truly informed. Torturing an American citizen is at least as treasonous as selling the nation's top secrets to a foreign power. Next, deception operations against the human biocomputer. What is it that corresponds to your reality? What do you perceive, and how do you make your decisions? You receive information through your eyes, ears, and other senses. You read the information from the writers you choose to read, and listen to the speakers you have access to very often these days from TV, radio, or the internet. You think to yourself, in your private inner voice. You visualize and imagine. In information warfare against individuals, all of these are thought of as nothing but information channels that can be blocked, censored, co-opted, faked, forged, impersonated, or otherwise controlled to manipulate an individual. If you can control all the information an individual receives, then you can control their whole perceived reality. Like the hypnotized subject who does something which violates his ethics while being persuaded to imagine he is doing something else entirely, the information warfare subject is acting in a fantasy world created precisely to manipulate him to do what his controllers want. This is known as a deception operation. Such complete control, as far as I know, is not yet possible, but the principles still hold for whatever approximation can be achieved. And the principles have been put into practice. Of course, information warfare is a buzzword and most of it is just a take on the ages-old practices of propaganda, lying, and manipulation. But a new buzzword generates funding, and perhaps more importantly serves to morally distance the new, clean practices from the dirty, filthy business of immorally manipulating human beings like pawns, with complete disregard for unalienable human rights. What was new at the time of information warfare was 1. The Internet as a widespread societal force, and 2. The wider development of neuroinfluencing and so-called non-lethal weapons that can directly influence people's brains. As medicine and technology develop ever more advanced prosthetic devices, people will increasingly become cyborgs, as is already happening. Because of this trend, these issues will become increasingly clear with time. That is, it will become increasingly common to have computer devices implanted in one's body. If someone hacks into your home computer and steals or manipulates your data, then a crime has been committed and you should rightly be angry. But if someone hacks into your physical body, brain, and mind, the violation is incomparably greater. On our next episode, the basic modern mind control torture operation. Visit www.targetedindividualscanada.wordpress.com for more information.